Greatsword? Great axe? More like the Great Depression? Why toil away with such flimsy, meager weapons when you can instead be using something colossal? A weapon whose mere presence in your equipment makes you wonder if you've been eating too many cosmic brownies. A weapon whose defining trait is that it's big, unlike my Welcome everyone, my name is Fist Truck, and a couple of weeks ago I did a video called How to Greatsword in Elden Ring. So I figured my next natural step would have been to make a video about great axes and great hammers, but that kind of turned out to functionally be the same thing. So, and not wanting to sound too redundant, I kind of nixed that video, or at the very least it's being put on the back burner. Which brings us to today's video. Once again, welcome everyone, my name is Fist Truck, and today I'm going to show you how to colossal sword in Elden Ring. You know what's also colossal? The amount of people who watch and aren't subscribed. Click that big subscribe button now. Thank you. So just to get a very brief disclaimer out of the way, you may have noticed that I said colossal sword and not colossal weapon. This is primarily because in my attempts to put a build like that together, it was either the same as the one I'm about to show or kind of uninspiring, to be honest. With that being said, I will discuss some weapon substitutions for this build towards the end of the video. So just in case you like the premise, but maybe just desire to use something different, that part will be for you, hopefully. Now with that out of the way, let's do this shit. Step 1, make a character. Make sure to start with the hero class because this starts with the highest amount of strength. All we'll really need to do for level ups is pump at least 3 levels into dex, and then afterwards the rest are just going to go into strength. That way no points go to waste. Next, the starting gift really doesn't matter. However, you might want to go with the stone sword keys because of a later step. Lastly, I'm going to name this character Inflation because our damage is just going to be going up. Step 2. Sorry, that was me just gargling the balls of the Roar Medallion because I'm currently on a big kick with this thing ever since I did the Greatsword video. Nonetheless, this can be found within the Limgrave tunnels, found within Limgrave, obviously. We're getting this because it buffs roar attacks and roar-like Ashes of Wars, which if you saw that Greatsword video, this is not a surprise to you. Step 3, we'll be getting the Turtle Talisman. This can be found within Summon Water Village. You know you're in the right spot when you're by these turtles. The turtles that fuck, because turtles fuck. If you happen to have picked the stone sword keys as your starting gift, then this is where those will come in handy. Anywho, we're just getting this because we'll be chewing through stamina like where that one goes from Luigi's Mansion. Step 4, we'll be getting the Axe Talisman, which can be located at the bottom of this staircase underneath this bear, which happens to be at the Mistwood Ruins. Now let's show this bear that we care by kicking the shit out of it again. We're getting the Axe Talisman just because it buffs charged attacks. Step 5, as I look deep within myself and realize that as I continue to make melee builds, I continue to say the same shit over and over again, we'll be getting the Highland Axe. Located within the Stormvale Shopping Center, you can find melee build mainstays within this shopping center, such as the Claw Talisman, the Curved Sword Talisman, the Iron Wet Blade, and half of Fist Truck's build guides. This one included, sorta. Anyway, you get to this room with the spider boss in it. Shout out to anybody who gets that reference. Within this room, there's a gigantic painting of Sir Papichulo himself. The Highland Axe is at the base of the painting. Step 6, we'll be getting everyone's favorite anime reference. Not that I get it all that much because I've never really cared to read nor watch Berserk. Nonetheless, we're getting the Greatsword sword, Colossal sword, Greatsword. The Greatsword that's called sword. Fuck, I messed that up. The sword that's called the Greatsword. Anyway, this can luckily be found pretty early on in New Jersey, so even if you're doing this at the beginning of the game, you really don't have to risk your ass all that much. There's a carriage surrounded by these dog sharks, treasure chest, open it up, the Greatsword sword will be yours. Why are we getting this one? Because it scales pretty well with strength and it's easy to get, but there are substitutions for this. Once again, I'll speak about those later. It does require 31 strength to wield it. However, if you're just trying to hit the baseline requirements to two-hand it, you just need 21 strength in order to do that. Step 7, and the last important step for this build, we'll be getting the Barbaric Roar, Ash of War. Oh shit, he's spitting. Everybody calm down. It's located at pretty much the tippy top of Liurnia. Located near the Ravine Veiled Village bonfire. That shit is harder to say than you think it is. There's a Beetleborg. Smack the shit out of him. Drops the Ash of War. Luckily, this one defaults to the heavy infusion, so even if you happen to not have the Iron Wet Blade, it really doesn't matter. Lastly, we're using this over Warcry or any of the other ones because it makes a strong attack come out faster. And also, it does a fucking shit ton of damage. It's really cool. Step 8. You kind of feel fill in the blanks here. It's really up to you what you want to do from this point on. You might have noticed that I only recommended 3 talismans as opposed to 4. That's because I really couldn't settle on a 4th one that was particularly useful or stood out over the rest of them. I wound up settling on the medallion that gives you more stamina just because we use a lot of it with all of our attacks, and especially the strong one. Then you might just want to use the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman, so that way you can take more hits. You might want to use the Bull Goat talisman so you have more poise so your strong attacks don't get interrupted. You might want to go with the Great Jar arsenal just so you can have heavier armor on. The choice is yours, and I'm sure there's a bunch more that I'm not even thinking about. Which also brings you to the armor. Just kind of use whatever you want that fits within the 70% threshold. In my case, I wound up using just the scaled armor with the Shabiri helmet, and that's solely just to fit the equip load. It's not a fashion statement. In fact, my sword clips through the helmet, so there's that. So now how you'll be playing this build. Some of you might find it weird that I didn't recommend that you get the Claw Talisman, because typically you'd be like, hey, you're going to use jumping attacks with this thing. Well, with the most recent patch, they made the rolling R1 faster. The rolling R1 is so fucking good, and since the sword is huge, the range is insane. Pretty much all the time, you'll just be doing that, and because it's a big boy weapon, the stagger potential or poise damage, whatever we may want to call it, is so good that you don't even have to do jumping attacks in order to get things to stagger and put them in a crit state. Which, by the way, when they go in the crit state, do not do the crit. We're doing the charged attack, because look at the fucking damage. I almost smacked Mork out into the fucking land before time. Me, personally, under normal circumstances where you're not using a shit ton of consumables or casting buff spells, it's just the Ash of War and then the strong attack, I have never seen one single hit do 4,487 damage.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Once again, under normal circumstances. Like, I understand the guy from Berserk is called Guts. I might want to change my guy's name to Nuts, because I'm busting fat ones every time I get this attack out, which is not as often as I would like because it's really slow, and you know, you can get fucked up while you're trying to do this. But God, is it so worth it. So for those of you who might be like, hey, this is kind of the same as your regular greatsword build, you're mostly right. However, the change in weapon and Ash of War does make a significant difference in how your strong attacks come out. Not to mention, as opposed to trying to spam jumping attacks in between doing strong attacks, we're just really relying on our rolling R1. So for those of you who have been playing since this game came out, I'm sure that some of you remember that in the beginning, weapons like this sucked massive balls. And it's really cool seeing how good they are now. They're not necessarily better than anything else, but they're as good as they should be. At least that's how I feel about it. Now on to the weapon substitutions. I picked 3 weapons specifically because I think they serve an actual purpose other than just looking different. So with that out of the way, let's first start with the Zweihander. Once again, I'm Puerto Rican, not German, but you know what I'm talking about. So why do I think this one's a good substitution? First, because it's easier to get and it's easier to equip. All you have to do is just go to Florida and buy the thing if you have enough Eldens to get it. And if you want to equip it as opposed to having 21 strength to two-hand it, you just need 13, which means we can pretty much just equip this the moment we start the game. Also, I think for any fans of Sekiro, if you equip the Briar armor, it kind of looks like your dad of Robert after he died and then got tormented and sent to hell and then came back in a game where he can't block anymore. If you wanted to use a colossal weapon instead of a colossal sword, the Giant Crusher makes an amazing substitution. Arguably better, though the lack of range really sucks and the rolling R1 has literally no range at all, but when it does hit, it's very good. Nonetheless, according to the wiki, the occult scaling gives the highest non-split damage in the game as long as you have a shit ton of arcane and strength. So if you're on a really high new game plus, I see this one being really useful. I decided to mess around with it for a little bit just to see the damage, and keeping in mind that I'm on max new game plus here, that's a lot of damage. And lastly, if you just want a big ass sword that's just nothing but pure damage, I don't think there's anything better than the Ruins Greatsword. There are no gimmicks to this one, it's just really strong. When fully upgraded, it has the highest strength scaling amongst all of the colossal swords. The only catch is you can't change the Ash of War, which sucks eggs. But if you're just looking for a build where you do nothing but just smack stuff, nothing fancy to it, I don't think there's anything better than this. It has the same awesome range as a Greatsword sword, but with the benefit of just doing more raw damage. So those are the substitutions that I found to be worth it, while also, for the most part, staying pretty close to the original build. I know there's a bunch more weapons that you can use, but those would probably just be different builds altogether. Lastly, why no colossal weapon builds? Aside from me talking about the Giant Crusher previously, it's just because I messed around with a few of them and was kind of uninspired by it. In my how-to halberd video, I did mess around with the golem's halberd a bit. It was alright, but I didn't find it very fun. And then I figured, you know what would be really cool if I decided to do a sequel to the how-to caveman and Elden Ring video. So I decided to make King Unga, Lord of all that is Punga. Instead of using the large club, we're using the great club. The really annoying thing about this club is that you can't change the Ash of War, and I'm not gonna lie, I think the Ash of War is pretty shit. Now you can buff the weapon with Blood Flame Blade or Poison Weapon, and then the Ash of War will have the same traits or characteristics of the buff, which is cool, but it takes so long to do, and the little projectiles really don't do that much damage. I just didn't really think it was worth it. The only thing that was really cool about that club was the fact that the strong attack came out pretty quickly, so it didn't make doing the whole axe talisman thing kind of worth it, but overall I found it to be pretty underwhelming, and sometimes I'm okay with things that are underwhelming in terms of damage, but as a whole, it didn't really rustle my jimmies in the way that I like, so I think I have to come back to that at some point. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see King Unga, Lord of all that is Bunga, in its own dedicated video. And if that's the case, then I'll definitely take a serious crack at it. Alright, well that pretty much wraps up this video. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or dislike, or whatever, you know, you do you. I appreciate it nonetheless. And until next time, don't forget to always wipe before you shit.